I hope that you are having a fabulous January 2nd. It seems so odd that January 2nd's, I don't know why, but it just seems odd that January 2nd's on Monday. It's throwing me because, with the whole thing of the Rose Parade not being on yesterday, it's on today. It's just in my mind up. So I've been totally off on my totally forgot yesterday was Sunday. Don't know why, but I did. For some reason, I knew it was Sunday in the morning, and then suddenly I thought it was Saturday, and then I woke up today like Wednesday. So I have no idea what's going on. Um, I'm assuming that it has to do with some sadness that I have gone through that you may have read about. His mother and losing the little stray cat that I fed for 12 years. So he's really not a stray. I mean, legally he was mine. And I guess he made me his human, but I never thought I'd pick him up or anything until the end. And then, of course, taking down the decorations, which I did during the Georgia Ohio State game because it was freaking me out. So I started taking decorations down because I was pulling for Georgia, and they were having a little problem. So every time I went upstairs though to put stuff away, something good happened. So I was actually up there at the end of the game, so I totally missed it because I was like, I'm not going to see this. So I was very happy though with the outcome. Just in case you're wondering, yeah, I was pulling for Georgia and TCU, and now I think I'm going to pull for TCU. But I won't be sad if Georgia wins either, so it's kind of a win-win. Anyway, I wanted that Sunday night encouragement, even though it's late and it's Monday afternoon now. Um, now that I've watched the Rose Parade and I've settled in, I've tried to figure out what I'm doing with some stuff. I wanted to give you some of that encouragement because it's a weird thing. I even scrolled Facebook a little bit and saw where, like Susan, I saw where your son went to school today, even though he didn't have it. And I've seen some other people talking about being confused about things too. So I feel good that I'm not the only one. But it's a new year, and everybody gets excited with the new year, and then what happens is so often people go tank, and they just tank after a couple of days. Resolutions, studies. So many studies have been done about resolutions, and people like give them up after with before the first quarter of the year is even over. I always gave up most of mine before the first month was over. So don't do resolutions anymore. I do a word of the year. And I know a lot of you do that. And I would love for you to post what your word of the year is in the comments or create your own comment and tell us what your word of the year is. Go live if you want to. Tell us what it is, what it means to you, and why you're doing it. So I started doing word of the year 3 years ago. Rejoice was my very first one in 2020. Yeah. And the cool thing, the interesting thing about a word of the year, I would say cool, but it's kind of just a strange thing, is you start this word of the year because it's something you want to develop, right? It's not something you already have because if you're already doing it great, you don't need it as your word of the year. So it's always something you want to develop. And I wanted rejoice to be my word of the year. And of course, before January was over, my father was in the hospital. He passed away on March 1st of that year. The week after his funeral, the entire world shut down. So it was very difficult for me. For the first quarter, I was sitting here going, are you kidding? The word you gave me, Lord? Rejoice? Where's the rejoicing in all of this? After the world shut down, so actually before the end of the first quarter, right toward the end of March, it hit me that with the day my father died, and because of that, we were able to have a full funeral. We were able to see people we hadn't seen in years. Had some relatives come in, and one of my old old neighbors growing up on the street where my parents lived, um, one of them said it's like a reunion because somebody from all the houses that were there when I was growing up was there to represent. And so it was a rejoiceful year, even with everything so awful that was going on. And I also lost my favorite uncle that year. And again, I was like, how am I supposed to rejoice in this? And I was able to because I was able to reframe it all with rejoicing. And that's why this past week, when I had all the stuff going on with the cold weather and the cat and paying the vet, that's why I was able to reframe. I hate this cold weather and you're costing me an arm and a leg, cat. I was able to reframe all of that to be grateful for the cold weather so that that cat came to me. And so I was thinking about how can I save this cat from this cold weather and then and then I was able to take him to the vet. And, I have the money in the bank. I was able, because I've managed to save all this money over the years, as you know, I 10x'd my savings in less than 10 years, and I've nearly quadrupled that in the last 4 or 3 or however, whatever it is. End of January 19 to, well, end of January this year, it will be 4 years. I've nearly quadrupled that. So I was able to pay for it without putting on a credit card that I was going to pay off later, because I don't pay off credit cards later. I pay them off immediately. I do use them because I pay them off immediately. Um, but I use them for the points, so I can get the reward points. So anytime you do that, that's a great thing, because you're getting then this free money. You're getting abundance. Money is coming to you. And as long as you pay them off right away. So if you haven't paid off your credit cards, if you're worried about those things, start paying, pay more than the minimum so you can start paying those off. Anyway, that's a different story. That's how I was able to reframe all this, is because I did rejoicing so much 3 years, in 2020. It wasn't suddenly that I'm just able to do this. Woohoo! It's because I did a lot of work in 2020 to be able to find silver linings. And then in 2021, my word was celebrate. And again, it was kind of difficult in the beginning, because here again, we were still, we were back in COVID protocols and COVID quarantines and all this stuff. It was, again, it was very, very difficult. And then, but again, I learned how to celebrate even little things. I danced to commercials. I started watching Emily in Paris because Paula, you mentioned it, and some other people mentioned it. I started watching it. I danced a lot during that show as I was watching those 3 seasons, because every time the music came on, I was just dancing. So I went back to dance classes at the end of October. All these things are happening because of those words that I chose, and that's what I focused on. This past year, my word was bloom, and again, the beginning of the year was like nothing, and then I started planting some flowers in the spring, and I have some fake flowers right outside my window that always look like they're in bloom. And neighbors, it's weird. The neighbors actually think they're real. It's crazy. It's like they got this little solar light thing on them. They light up at night. Why would you think they're real? But I guess they don't see that. And so I noticed I started blooming. I started, I did the haircut thing, which at first I wasn't too crazy about, but as it got a little bit longer, it was too short at the beginning, I think. It got a little bit longer, I liked it. And it turned out, I've wanted to lose some of this menopausal middle here that I have. We all get. Sorry, but you're going to get it unless you do some major changes in your life. And I was actually able to do those without going crazy. I mean, I'm a Coca-holic. I've drank those things. I think I know I was drinking them since birth. But my mom drank them too, so And I was able to turn away from them and not really drink them and change my eating habits pretty easily no headaches. I didn't even get the headaches. And that's because I went to the root beer first. But all of this was blooming because I was learning more things, and new little ideas were sprouting out. And that's where the blooming came from, is new little things were sprouting out. So this year, I've kind of gone back and forth on this year's word. And right now it's expand. I think that's what it's going to be, and it's expand. And I did a little, because I kept going, but I don't want to expand. My first thought when expand came to me, was the first thing that thought about me expanding was my belly and everything, and I was trying to get rid of that. So I ended up with this little spider web thing, which I'm going to develop into more, and all the areas that I do want to expand in. And so that's what I want to encourage you with today, is that when you choose your word, or you let your word choose you. And if you want more information on that, we can talk about that. We can do a little quick 2 or 3 day challenge on that. If you haven't chosen your word, or if you don't know how to choose your word, we can do that in here. It's easy. It's so simple. It comes to you. And you have to remember that when you first start it, it's going to be difficult. You're going to get challenges about it. Things are going to happen that you're like, seriously, this is the word you sent me? I don't get it. What am I supposed to do with this? But by the time the year's over, you'll see the changes. And I made a post a few days ago about what was your word of the year for 2022. And if you haven't seen that, go look at that. And I would love to know what your word it was for 2022, and how it showed up in your life. How did it manifest for you? What happened that helped you to grow into that word? And the cool thing about word of the year is, you should pick something different every year so that you're growing instead of stagnating. Because stagnation is death. You don't want to do that. Stagnation is death, whether it's stagnation of your bank accounts, whether it's stagnation of your growth, of your spiritual growth, your emotional growth, your intellectual growth. It's stagnation is death. So you always want to be growing, 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 preferably in in the right direction, upwards and outwards, because you don't and inwards too, I guess, and looking at today, living in the present instead of in the past, and instead of too far in the future. Because if you're living too much in the future and you start worrying about things in the future, well, they may never come to pass. You may not live long enough to see them come to pass, you know, um, if they do. And you'll end up wasting today if you're worrying so much about that. So that's all my little words of encouragement for today is if you haven't found your word for this year, let me know and we'll do something to help you out with it. I also got a post coming up. I think it's already posted. I did a post about what you'd like to learn this month because I'm ready to do a challenge. Let's do a challenge and let's see what we can learn. And so be grateful for the day, be grateful for the new year. Think about the wonderful things that happened yesterday. Look back, reflect. I'm not saying live in the past, but look back over the last year and see how your word of the year developed. See, or how you developed with your word of the year from 2022. Another thing that I really like to do at the end of the year, I know some of you have already put your decorations away. Mine are put away too, but my Christmas cards are still out. Hi, Lydia. I haven't seen you in a while. So if you're just getting your decorations down, a wonderful, fun little thing to do is with your Christmas cards, write yourself a letter that you can read next year. Even put it, if you've got an extra card, put it in the card, put it in an envelope, and write it to yourself about the things that you want to happen in 2023. You know, don't go outrageously crazy. If you're living payday to payday, don't ask for $1 million pay raise. But be a little realistic about be realistic about it. Like ask for a 10 or 20% pay raise to bring in 20% more money than you have, to start saving if you don't have a savings, to start saving, and to maybe have a certain amount of money by the end of the year. Maybe it's to put some money down on buy some new clothes, to elevate your life a little bit. If you are in my program and you've seen the Elevate Your Life inventory, maybe it's to get 3 or 4 of those things done, maybe even 5 or 6 to get those done by the end of the year. So maybe it's to go on a vacation, whatever it may be. Write those things down as to the things that you want to do. Maybe spend more time with your family, spend time with your mother. Speak to your mother, at least once or twice a week, or to your children, or maybe it's to go to their school events if you have school age children. Whatever it may be, write down the things that you are hoping that you're hoping and setting intentions for, because that's what you're doing when you write it down, is you're setting those intentions. So write that down in a letter to yourself, and then at the end of the year, you get to read it, and you get to see how much of them happened. And you'll probably see 1 or 2 that didn't, but you'll also say, well, this didn't happen, but I got this close. With the savings thing, maybe you don't save $10,000, but maybe you save 5. It has to be 5 more than you had, right? So that's what it's for. It's not to make you feel bad. It's so that next year you can read it and you can go, oh my goodness, look at these things that did happen. Or maybe it was things that you look at and you go, I guess I didn't really focus on this. So if you don't want to wait till Christmas to read it, you can always, peek at your cards in June, have a little Christmas in June. Maybe I'll remind you of that. So it's a fun thing to do, as well as write down in it some of the wonderful things that happened around this holiday season, so that you always have that to remember, just in case the next holiday season brings you not quite as much joy. So that's my encouragement for this week. Like I said, I know it was supposed to be last night and I didn't know what day it was, so it's here on a Monday, and I hope you're having a wonderful time. Hi, Lydia. Did you pick your word of the year yet, Lydia? I was just waiting for it because there's always a delay here. So, other than that, let me know your comment. Like I said, let me know your words of the year for 2023 in the comments below, or if you want some help figuring that out. And because, like I said, we could do a little work, a little challenge on it because I do intend to do a challenge this month. So, still thinking about your word. Okay, let it come to you because sometimes sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And like I said, we'll happily do a challenge on it. And there's a post about the 2022 word. If you want to put your 2022 word there and tell me how it developed in your life, I would love to know that. And I will talk to you tomorrow about something totally else, something totally unrelated to the word of the year, but about money. So, Happy New Year! I'm so happy it's 2023 because what's the option? So, take care, and I will see you all soon. Bye, Lydia. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye.